Out of the Ordinary Insights, brought to you by Investec Specialist Bank.
You're watching Captains of Industry right here on CNBC Africa. We're speaking to Dr. Thomas Marshall. He's the CEO of Vela VKE and the Chief Operating Officer of SMEC's Africa Division. You spoke about an urban regeneration project in Angola. Give me a little more color around that project.
This was a phenomenal project. We started the first studies on it about 11 years ago. And that was about changing the face of the city of Luanda, the capital city of Angola. If we look at old Portuguese postcards in the 60s and 70s, all postcards always showed the marine face of Luanda with rows of palm trees and a boulevard around the bay, and it looked spectacular. And when I got there in 1995, the bay is totally polluted, so smelly that you couldn't get close to it.
Dilapidated infrastructure.
Totally, everything destroyed, very few of the palm trees left and so on. And together with some other Angolans and Portuguese people, we had a dream of revitalizing that. And it took us a long time to get there, but the first phase has just been inaugurated, where the bay has been cleaned up, environmentally cleaned up from extreme pollution. We've managed to re-establish a lot of the marine life. We've recreated the marginal, which is the boulevard around the bay, with lots of public open spaces and gardens and park areas and new engineering infrastructure, big sewerage schemes and roads.
When you say other partners, is this a public-private adventure?
It was a public-private partnership from the outset. And at the time, it was done through all phases with the full support from the Angolan government, but privately financed.
Do you see your ability to take this project and translate it to other stories across the African continent?
I think so. I think a lot of the governments can learn from the Angolan government in seeing what partnering means. It also sometimes means that you take the lead, and sometimes you don't take the lead. You must also sometimes step back and allow the other partner to do his stuff. Definitely the principle, there's lots of room for that in Africa, in various parts of Africa, and I think in fact that it's the secret to unlocking a lot of development in Africa and also here locally.
How do you define your leadership style?
I'm a collaborative type leader. I like working with people and through people. I'm not always the most patient guy, but I've learned a little bit more of that over time as well.
I see you've noted before that your biggest achievement in life is your marriage to a fantastic woman. I believe you got married in 1979. Yes,
it's the same girlfriend that I had at school.
And a chosen life partner. Is that fundamental to your success?
Correct. It certainly gives you some stability. Like all married couples, we've had our ups and downs over the years. I've worked in a lot of different locations, traveled a lot, which sometimes places stress on any relationship.
Does she mind moving countries?
It's difficult. We're very dedicated sort of parents as well.
You've got 3 children.
We've got 3 children, and although they're grown up, it's sometimes you feel that you don't want to miss part of their lives, and just we have dinner together once a week if it's possible. Whoever's available joins us for dinner once a week, and it's a great occasion. We all enjoy it.
What do you expect of your children? Do you want them to have robust corporate careers and follow in your footsteps?
No, I want them to be successful in life. I think that's much more important than.
And what is successful in life in your book?
In my book is do what you really love doing and enjoy that. And none of my children sort of ended up anywhere close to engineering, and I love them for it. I think they're doing fantastic things, each in his own area, in art and languages.
Who would you most like to meet in South Africa?
I've always had fantastic respect for Bishop Tutu, and every time that he speaks and says something very controversial, I just love him for it and the way that he does it, and the way that his Christianship comes across with total honesty and total integrity. I just think it's magnificent, and I'd love to meet him.
Who do you believe has shaped you as a leader?
I must say my father did play a big role. I had a lot of, always looked up to him. We weren't always the greatest of friends, but I always had a lot of respect for him and looked up to him and the way he handled his career as an engineer, and it must have had a big influence on my life.
I want to go back to a mistake that you've made. Is there something that stands out which you look back on now and wish you had done differently?
Yeah, I think earlier days in my career, sort of just coming up as a senior manager in tough economic times, our industry, construction industry, has always had these terrible cycles of boom and bust cycles, and as a very young manager I had to retrench people, at that time, if I had to do it today, I would still have to retrench them, but I would have done it differently in much more.
Is there a way to retrench people in an appropriate manner?
I think it's always tough, and it's always tough, and sometimes it's unavoidable. But I think more honesty and integrity in the process is.
Thomas, touching on the economic environment, how do you feel about the economic environment at the moment? Do you think that we're in for tougher times?
We're definitely in for tougher times. I believe we're in for some belt tightening, at least in the short term. We've got lots of fantastic things waiting for us very tantalizingly in the future, and I think the way that we handle our current situation with the labour problems that we have and so on is going to determine our future to a large extent. We've got a lot of serious choices to make now, and I'd love to see us reach sort of a social compact where we can all understand that we all have different roles to play to develop this country and this continent.
Your fortunes are tied enormously to the mining sector, and as you mentioned, the mining sector is going through a very tough period right now. Do you see that immediately reflecting in your books?
We've got a fair exposure to the mining sector, but we're still very strong in public infrastructure. So the nature of our business is that we have these balancing interests, which is great. We're not one of the firms that are totally mining dependent. So it does reflect on us, but at the same time we've got our public sector clients that have been very good to us over many years. And
as you say, the construction sector is boom and bust in nature. It's very cyclical. How do you manage to navigate through those cyclical environments, because you don't want to cut too deep and then you can't capitalize on the upswing? Where are we right now?
I think it's particularly difficult in South Africa. You describe it very well there. In South Africa, with our shortage of skills, if I look at the operations, for instance, in Australia or in the South Asia, it's much easier to adapt to the cycle, to let people go, to take on people, and people are used to that type of flexibility. South Africa, we can't. We're not that flexible, and also our skills are in short supply. If we let people go now, we're going to pay the price when anything picks up, because there are just no people available on the market. So it is a very difficult one to manage, and I think that's one of the areas where it's difficult to sometimes explain that to our partners in other parts of the world.
Obviously, SMEC has bought into it, the cyclicality of the industry, and with that hefty balance sheet, they will create the stability and allow you to weather the down phase. Definitely,
but we see it very much a selling point of our South African operation, that we have gone through many cycles and we can manage it, and we need our overseas partners to have full confidence that we will be able to manage the ups and downs.
What do you want your legacy to be, just in conclusion?
I'd like to see South Africans of all groups in our company finding a home in this organization and seeing themselves as citizens of the world once more, being contributors to developing not only our own country but developing the whole of Africa and other parts of the world.
Thank you so much for your time. Well, we've been chatting to Dr. Thomas Marshall, the CEO of Vela VKE and the Chief Operating Officer of SMEC's Africa Division.